Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to see you. Please come into that chat. Tell me where you are, where you're coming from. Let me know your position and what you're excited to get into tonight. I'm so excited to see all of you here. So, as the comments are coming in, I just want to, first of all, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. This is our first Strong Start Sunday. And the purpose of our time together is really to get into how can we as school leaders work together, share ideas to become better. That's really what this work is all about. And one of the things that I know I've benefited from personally is just the connections with so many amazing leaders, both inside my district in Maryland and outside of the district, across the state, across the country, and really across the world. So I'm just extremely excited for this opportunity tonight. This is our first one for Strong Start Sundays. So I want to give you a little bit of background about me and my leadership journey, and then we're going to be talking about culture, because that's the main thing. How do we build that strong culture and really have schools where people want to be, where teachers want to stay, where students want to be, and where families want to be? So my name is Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket, and I have served in public education now for 20 years. I got my certificate from my school district that says I've completed 20 years. And really, it's been an amazing journey to be in public education for so long. I continue to learn and lead with so many amazing people. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to serve children every day, to serve our teachers, to serve our families and our communities. And I know the fact that you're here, you have that same passion. So that's what I'm really excited about. I also am entering a new role. My new role is the president of the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals. It is such a blessing to be in that role because I really get an opportunity to meet people across the state of Maryland, and also to meet people through MAESP and NAESP, our national organization. So I want to put a plug in here. If you are a school leader or an aspiring school leader and you want that opportunity to continue to grow, definitely join your state affiliate, because you'll be able to have so many opportunities. And I also want to shout out Teacher Goals for this amazing opportunity to, first of all, write a book. The book is called Relational Intelligence, the Key Factor to Exceptional School Leadership. I had an opportunity to write that book with Dr. Brad Johnson, one of my great friends. And we really talk about how to build a strong culture. That book is available now on Amazon. We're #1. So thank you so much for your support. If you haven't picked it up yet, there's still time to do that on your summer reading list. So thank you so much. And we hope that you enjoy that work. So let's get started. Again, the purpose of this group is to really bring together school leaders just to talk about different issues and ways that we can continue to get better, to grow our schools, to get that student achievement that we're all looking for, and really to retain the teachers and staff in our buildings so that they want to be there every day just like we do. And so let's first talk about culture. We all know the importance of having a strong culture. We want people to come to our schools, to love our schools, to have a sense of belonging in our schools. You know, as a school leader, there's nothing better than hearing someone talk about our schools in a very positive way, and hearing a parent say, I love my child's school. That's what we all want. It's nothing better than having a student say, I love coming to school every day. I love that. And so that's the environment that we want to create. And we want to create the same environment for our teachers and staff, because we know when we take care of our teachers and staff and they're happy, their morale is where we want it to be, then everything flows out from there. So let's get into some real strategies that we can use to help create a strong culture from day one. But I want to give you a little caveat. School culture is not built overnight. It's not built in one day, but it does start on day one. School culture is not built in a day, but it does start on day one. So I want to leave you with 3 different tips and strategies for us to help that strong culture from day one. So the first one I want to really focus on is being visible, warm, and present. You know, I'm someone who has been an administrator now for 11 years. That's hard to believe over half of my career, I've been a school leader now. And I had been at my previous school for 9 years. So I really knew that community well. I knew the teachers, I knew the students, I knew their families. And this year I moved to a different school. And I love my new school. It's an amazing school with a great school community and great culture. But when you are starting and transitioning into a new school, and I know many of you on the call might be at a new school community this year, it gives you an opportunity to do something new. And that's something that I was really excited about, is to have an opportunity to try some new things, to try to really connect with the community in a different way. So one of the ideas that I had was to do some community bus stop visits. So, traditionally on the first day when staff returns, we usually have some sort of a breakfast, and then we have meetings the rest of the day, right? We do that professional learning. We get into all of those long meetings that sometimes the staff is, that first day, it's hard to do that. So we wanted to change that. We really wanted to do something a little different. So what we did was we had our traditional breakfast and time for the staff to come together and commune again after the summer. But then we immediately got into our cars and pushed out into the community. We had consolidated all the bus stops. And a couple days earlier, we told our community that we would be coming out to visit them at around 10 in the morning. So each of us kind of carpooled. We had streamers, we had posters, we had pencils, we had some stickers, and we pushed out into each of our neighborhoods. We did about 9 different stops. And when I tell you the joy on a child's face, when they saw their teachers, when they saw their favorite paraeducator, when they saw their favorite leadership intern, we had some interns last year, when they saw those teachers, the joy on their face, the excitement, and it was 2 ways. The teachers were so excited to see their students. And I know, being new, I was the new principal. So I was knocking on doors and saying, "Hi, I'm Dr. Edoho-Eket, your new principal." And that gave me the face time with both families and students, and sometimes grandparents who also were there. So it was just a wonderful opportunity to be present. It didn't cost us much of anything because we all carpooled and we just took out some information to the community. We even had like a little piece of paper that said, these are the dates for the school year. Here's our back to school night information. Here's the time we'll be doing our open house. And it really helped to get the community excited. This is a new tradition for our school community. We'll be doing it again next week, right? When the staff is coming back for us on August 14th. So we're going to do that again. And I want to encourage you to think through how we can continue to build upon that culture, because this was something that didn't cost us anything. It cost us next to nothing. It was some pencils and some stickers, but it was our presence that made the difference. So what I really want to focus on right now is thinking through ways that we as school leaders can be present and warm and welcoming to all of our families day one. And here are just a few strategies that I use. The first one is on that first day of school, I am outside greeting everyone. I actually do car duty. So those of you who have seen pictures of me in car duty, I am outside, rain, shine, cold, sleet, whatever. Heat, I'm outside guiding families in, waving to children. That's so important that we take that time to do that. Seeing that smiling face from an administrator or from our teachers and staff who do that duty. Are there days when it's extremely cold? Yes. But that warmth that we bring out from just having that excitement to start the school day makes such a big difference for our students and our families. Even when you're having a bad day, sometimes when you see a child and they give you that hug or they reach out with their big smile on their face, that's all we need. So we can provide that too for our students and families. Another thing that I do on that first day of school is I visit every single classroom. It's really important that we take that time, no agenda, just getting into the classrooms and introducing ourselves, checking in on students. Hey, I missed you. How was your summer? I'm so glad that you're back. That's really the type of energy that we want to welcome our students and our staff members with. So I encourage you on that first day of school, make sure you're getting into every classroom. Make sure you make it a point to see as many children as you can. Really, on that first day, you want to see every child. And a way that you can do that in another way outside of the classroom is getting into the cafeteria. get into the cafeteria, walk the cafeteria, ask people, what do you need? Do you need help with something? I'm your principal, because we know that there are also new students who are also coming into our buildings in the beginning of the school year. And we want to give them an opportunity to get to know us as well. So sometimes just saying, oh, I didn't recognize you. Are you new to our school? What was the name of your old school? Who is your teacher? What do you enjoy so far? That goes a long way in putting that personal touch for families and for new students who are just coming to our buildings who may have a little bit of anxiety. So it's important that we take that time to really give that touch point personally as assistant principals, as leaders in our buildings, so that everyone knows that they belong and that there's a welcoming space, that now that you're here, we're complete. You know, I just had an opportunity to go to Ghana, and one of the things that really stuck out to me, someone had mentioned that there was this whole conversation around someone being late. And instead of saying, oh my goodness, you're late, the conversation was, now that you're here, we are more complete. Now we're complete. And I love that. That really stuck with me. And that's what we want to think about with our students. Now that they're here, we're complete, right? So that's what we want to share with our students. Another thing is that I always do is learning the names of people. I understand that sounds very basic, but the fact that we as school leaders know the names of our students, that we know the names of our staff members, that we know the names of our families, that goes a long way in creating that belonging and that welcoming. One of the things that I've always done, both as a new assistant principal and now as new principal to my school, the first thing I did was ask for a copy of the yearbook. I wanted the yearbook because I wanted to go through it and learn the names of our staff members. That was number one. My second priority, learning the students' names. And so now, even the summertime, I'm doing my refresher. I'm going right back over, opening up that yearbook, remembering everyone's names, doing that refresher for the start of the school year. Because again, there's nothing like having an adult calling your name. I remember as a child how special I felt when my principal would say, hi, Rachel, how are you today? That meant something to me because there were hundreds of students in our school. But the fact that he knew my name let me know that I was special to him. And that's the same thing that we can give to our students and our staff members. You know, learning names are so simple. It does take a process to do that. But the act of taking the time to learn someone's name means something to people. So I encourage you to take that time to learn names. Okay, so we've talked about ways of being highly visible, warm, and present. And now let's talk about how we can prioritize belonging. This is really, really so important to everyone in our building. We know the importance of belonging. You know, I like to say that when we cultivate belonging, then student achievement increases. Because when a student feels like they're a welcomed part of our school, they want to be there. They want to do what's best. They want to do what's right. So let's work on cultivating that sense of belonging. One of the easiest ways that we can do this, and yes, I'm going to come back to names because I'm someone that has a name that is different and sometimes hard to pronounce. We have to get the pronunciation right on names. Now, my last name is Edoho-Eket. It's actually very simple to say. There was a student years ago who was in our preschool, and for a year, all year, he called me, hi, Mrs. Connecticut. And it was the cutest thing. And his mother, every time when he would come out of the car loop, he would say, hi, Miss Connecticut. And I would say, hello. And we would keep going. And the mom would say, I'm so sorry, Dr. Edoho-Eket, that he's calling you Mrs. Connecticut. I'm working on that. I said, stop. It is so precious that he is attempting to say my name, and he's 4 years old. I love that. So now when adults say, how do you say your name? I say, say Connecticut, say Edoho-Eket. And it's much easier that way. So children teach us so much. Who would have thought in the future that I would use a 4-year-old to help adults pronounce my name? But that's one thing that we can do to show that we care about someone, is pronouncing their name correctly. You know, I talk about when I was growing up, we learned about Baryshnikov. We learned about Michelangelo. We are capable of saying lots of different names. So let's do that. Let's take the time to learn people's names and pronounce them. Another thing that we can do as leaders to prioritize belonging is really to seek feedback and input. This is something that is really important to me because as a former athlete, I'm always focused on improvement and I always want to know what I can do better. And so simply asking someone what's their opinion and what you can do better, that's a start, but that's not where we end it. We have to actually follow through because it's one thing to ask someone their input, but if we don't do anything with it, then they feel, what was the point, right? And we never want people to feel that way. And so if I ask you for your input, which I do, please know I'm listening and I'm taking it all in. And it's important to communicate that to our staff and to our families and our communities, because if people know that I'm asking for input as a school leader, I want your input, and then I'm going to utilize that input and do something with it, then that's important. That's how we build trust. That's how we continue to build that culture that we want within our schools. So remember, it's not just enough to ask for input. We have to do something with it. And even if there are times when we receive input and we're not able to honor, we can communicate that and say, hey, I love this idea. Here are some barriers to that. So at least people know you have at least followed through and you are attempting to follow through on their promise. So another last thing I wanted to share is our community newsletter. So when I first came to my school, I'd asked, what is the language, the second language that is most prominent in our schools? And we did an analysis and found out it was Spanish. And so one of the first things that I did to help prioritize that belonging was to make our newsletter in dual language. It's very, very simple to do this. So each week on Fridays, I send an email to the entire community with pictures and all the things that are happening at 8:30 in the morning. But if you go on to Google, which is where I do mine, you can simply go to any language under tools. It'll say translate. You can translate into another language. So I just make a second one in Spanish. The pictures all remain, just all the wording changes. And then I link out. And at the top of my newsletter every week, I just say en español. And so any family that needs that clicks it and they can read it in another language. I will tell you that first week that I sent that newsletter that was translated into both Spanish and English, I received a response from one of our Spanish-speaking families in Spanish. So I then had to translate that back to myself. But it said, thank you so much for putting this into my language. I appreciate the effort. And so sometimes it's just thinking a little bit outside of the box. Again, it is completely free. It is one more step, but it includes everybody. And it does increase that sense of belonging with all of our families. I then took it a step further. And so now when we communicate with families and we send a text message, for instance, let's say there's an early closing day, I send it in Spanish and in English. Reminder, today school is closing at 12:55. Have a great afternoon. But those type of touches are extremely important to make sure that all family knows what's going on, that they're included, and that they have a sense of belonging, because that's what we all want. We want everyone to feel included. And so we've talked about being highly visible. We've shared some strategies. Now we've also talked about specific strategies for creating that sense of belonging. And finally, I want to talk about celebrating wins. What can we celebrate? You know, when we think about public education right now, there's a lot of things that are not great. That's true. There are a lot of things that are happening right now in our control, out of our control, that we may not agree with. But what's in our control is how we communicate about our schools, how we showcase the wonderful things that are going on. It's my belief that every one of our schools has amazing things happening. Every single one of our schools have wonderful teachers, have great students, have wonderful families that are learning every single day. But my question for you is, how are we showing that? How are we celebrating that? How will the general public know what's going on in our schools if we don't share it? You know, years ago, I read a book about being a first-year principal. And one of the things that always stuck with me is they said that when you are a school leader, you are the mayor of your school. You are like a mayor. And it's your responsibility to share all the wonderful things that are happening in your school. You have to tell your own school story. And that's my belief. We have to take control of the narrative of our schools. We all have wonderful things going on. So let's take time to show them. So first of all, we've got something simple right in our hands. It's a phone. It is so easy to go through, walk in a classroom, take pictures of the learning that's happening, and share it out. So one of the things that I have done now for 11 years is that I share one picture a week with our staff. It might be a student assembly that has happened. It might be something that I witnessed in the cafeteria that was a lot of fun that I wanted to lift up. It might be this really amazing lesson that I saw a teacher or a colleague doing. It might be a one-on-one interaction with a student assistant or a parent educator with a student that was just beautiful. And I want to lift that up. It's very simple to do that. I take the picture and I call it a Happy Friday. It's just a Happy Friday email. It's a picture with a small phrase that just describes what I saw. And those little touch points matter. You celebrate big wins, but really it's the everyday things that happen in our schools that we need to lift up. That's what I believe. I believe it's the things that happen every single day. The things that we might walk past, we may not notice, that we need to slow down and focus on that, because that's a part of our school story. And so I encourage you to, as you're thinking through this school year, what can you highlight? Yes, we have data conversations. Yes, we can talk about student attendance and behavior rates and office referral data and all those data. Yes, we have that. But let's focus on other data too. How do our students feel? How do we know that? How do our teachers feel? How do we know that? Do we see people who are happy to come to work every day? Do we see students smiling? Do we see peer-to-peer interactions that are kind? That's what we really want to begin to focus our time and energy on. I also want us to think about, how can we highlight our students more? What can we do? How can we lift up our students who are going to be leaders, our students who are going to be leading the next generation? How can we help lift them up? One of the things that I thought about a little bit this year is being a new principal to our school. We know sometimes as principals, we have to make those phone calls when someone makes a mistake or when a child, does something they should not do. We're on that phone right away, calling families to say, hey, I want to let you know that this happened today, and here's how we're handling it. That's a part of our job. But one of the things that I had to think about was, how often was I making phone calls like that? And sometimes that was my first contact with the family. And I don't love that feeling. None of us do. None of us want to be the person who is the bearer of bad news, who is constantly calling when something is wrong. So I decided to make a change. And one of the things that I started instituting was positive phone call Fridays. And just when I saw something good happening in the cafeteria, at recess, in the classroom, I picked up the phone. I said, hey, it's Dr. Edoho-Eket. And they go, uh-oh, right? Because that's natural. When you see the school's phone number, you think something might be wrong. I said, no, I'm calling with good news. I want to tell you something that your child did right. You'd be amazed at what it does for a family to hear that positive phone call from a principal, from an assistant principal, from a teacher. It makes such a difference. And so when I call parents, they say, whoa, what? I've never received a call like this before. And so that's a way to build that rapport, to really build up that positive culture we want to create. And that's the fact. We can create that culture. You can do it. It's a choice, right? Yes, we have to make certain calls, but it's a choice to make positive phone calls. So I want to challenge you to think about how we can lift up more joy in our day, how we can lift up the right things that are happening in our schools, and then see the change that happens as a result of that. The students get excited. Hey, doctor, can you call my mom and yes, or we might say to a student, hey, I saw you doing something great. I really want you to turn that behavior around so I can call your parents and tell them how well you're doing. That goes a long way too. So let's think about some more ways to infuse that joy. And we're getting near the end. We have about 5 minutes left. So I also want to just end with this, and that's making joy visible. Kind of, that's already a transition there, but how can we make joy visible? Where are the pictures? How can we show what's going on in our schools? Handwritten notes, bulletin boards. There are so many things that we can do visually around our school to make it a joyful place. So start thinking through. I'm not saying it has to be on Pinterest or it has to be some amazing display that takes hours and hours to create. It doesn't have to be like that. In fact, earlier this year, actually at the very end of the year, we had a video, we had a TV, but it had been off all year. Right when you walk in the building, it just was a TV screen. And it never even occurred to me what it was for. It was just there. So, you walk past it every day. Well, we were getting some upgrades at the very end of the year, and suddenly this TV turned on. And there was a slideshow of pictures from 2019, right before COVID happened. And there were these slideshows. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I can put some pictures on there. And he said, yes, you can. I said, I have them right here on my phone. So I immediately put that USB in my phone and connected it. And I added maybe 10 pictures. That was what I had. I had about 10 pictures to add on there. Do you know when the students the next day came into the school and they saw those pictures, they stopped right there and just stared at the screen. It was the best thing. When the families came in at the end of the year for the end of the year celebrations, they stopped and they looked at all the students. And so next year, we know we're going to really kick that up so students and families can see themselves right when you walk in the door. It doesn't cost us anything, but it's important that we see that. So I really appreciate you all spending this 30 minutes with me. We're getting ready to wrap down, but I wanted to look at some of the comments. I see some of my friends on here. Thank you so much for coming and supporting. I see some colleagues, some just wonderful educators and leaders. Thank you so much for spending 30 minutes with me and talking about ways that we can, have that positive school culture from day one. I see the plug for our new book, Relational Intelligence. If you don't have it yet, go on the link. It's in your chat box. It is on Amazon. We really put our heart and soul into this book. If you are looking for more strategies like the ones that I mentioned, times 20, come and get this book because we really have some practical ideas for you. They're not going to break the bank. Let's be honest. We don't have a lot of school funds, but these are things that just are human connection points that sometimes we just need to kick it up just a little bit. So we have some new ideas for you. We hope that you enjoyed this book. The reviews are coming in on this book, and we are so thrilled. It's a #1 book on school management, and we hope to continue to push this book out because this is important. It's important that we retain the teachers that we need. It's important that we retain great leaders. We need all of this. So thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Let me give you a plug for next week because next week is going to be pretty amazing. Not next week. It'll be on August 17th. At August 17th at 7 p.m., we have a brand new session coming up. And this is one I'm very, very passionate about. It's about work-life boundaries. Anybody who knows me knows I love boundaries. And I'm getting ready to share some very specific strategies with you. I think it's a perfect time as our school years are starting. Again, we're starting. Our students will be back on August 25th. Some of you are already in school. Some of you will be starting school right after Labor Day. And so this is the time for us to think through how we can have some tighter boundaries so we have the energy that we need to serve everyone in the way that they deserve. So I just want to thank you again. I see 640 people on this call right now, and I just am absolutely grateful and just blown away by the support. I really hope that you're taking some things away. I'm going to leave you with a reflection question. What is one thing that you can do to establish that positive school culture day one? One thing. Take away one takeaway. Let me know in the comments what you plan to do. Follow me on Instagram at Rachel Edoho-Eket. Across all the platforms, let me know how you're going to be infusing more joy this year and more belonging, more opportunities to showcase the beautiful and wonderful work that we're all doing in our schools. Thank you again, and we have reached the end. I really appreciate you being here tonight, and save the date. I will see you again on August 17th at 7 p.m., streaming live on Teacher Goals. Bye.